Daniel was still young when the world he knew collapsed. Jerusalem, the city of his ancestors, the city of worship and sacrifice, the city where the temple of the Lord stood in glory, trembled beneath the might of Babylon. The air, once filled with songs of pilgrims and the sound of priests offering sacrifices, was replaced by the thunder of invading armies. Walls were broken. Gates were burned. Sacred vessels were carried away as trophies of conquests. And among the captives taken from the land was a young noble named Daniel. He had grown up hearing stories of Abraham's faith, of Moses confronting Pharaoh, of David facing giants. He had learned the law. He had prayed toward the temple. He had believed that Jerusalem was the center of the world. Now he found himself chained and marched across desert lands toward a foreign empire whose gods were made of gold and whose kings claimed divine authority. Everything familiar was stripped away. Yet even as he left his homeland, something deeper remained unshaken inside him. His faith. Babylon was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Its walls towered high into the sky. Its gates gleamed with color and carved beasts. The palace floors reflected light like mirrors. Gardens hung in terraces, lush and breathtaking. It was a city built to impress and intimidate, and that was exactly its purpose. Babylon did not merely conquer nations. It absorbed them. It reshaped their language, their thinking, their loyalty. Daniel and several other young men from Judah were selected for royal training. They were intelligent, healthy, and capable, the best of their generation. The king intended to educate them in Babylonian literature and culture for 3 years before placing them into service. They were given new clothes. They were taught a new language, and then something even more symbolic happened. They were given new names. Daniel, whose Hebrew name meant, "God is my judge," was renamed Belteshazzar, a name honoring a Babylonian deity. His friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, were renamed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The renaming was intentional. Babylon wanted to redefine their identity. It wanted to rewrite their story. But though their names changed, their hearts did not. The first test of Daniel's faith did not come with violence. It came with comfort. The king assigned them food and wine from his own table, rich, luxurious provisions meant to strengthen and reward them. To refuse would seem foolish. To accept would mean compromise, for the food violated the dietary laws Daniel had followed since childhood. Daniel stood at a quiet crossroads. No one from Jerusalem was there to watch him. No priest was present to remind him of the law. He could easily justify adapting. After all, he was in Babylon now. Survival required flexibility, but Daniel resolved in his heart not to defile himself. He approached the official overseeing their training with respect. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He simply requested permission to eat vegetables and drink water instead. The official hesitated, afraid that Daniel might grow weak and cost him his position. Yet Daniel proposed a test of 10 days. 10 days later, Daniel and his friends appeared healthier than those who had feasted on royal delicacies. God honored their obedience. What began as a small decision revealed a powerful truth. Faithfulness in private builds strength for public trials. Years passed. Daniel excelled in knowledge and wisdom. When King Nebuchadnezzar was troubled by a disturbing dream, he demanded that his wise men not only interpret it, but first tell him what the dream had been. It was an impossible command. The astrologers protested. They declared that only the gods could reveal such mysteries. In anger, the king ordered their execution. Daniel heard of the decree. Instead of panic, he requested time. Then he gathered his friends and prayed. They sought mercy from the God of heaven. In the silence of night, God revealed the dream and its meaning. Daniel stood before Nebuchadnezzar and declared that there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He described the statue of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, kingdoms that would rise and fall, and spoke of a stone cut without human hands that would establish an eternal kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar was astonished. Daniel was promoted. Yet even in elevation, Daniel remained humble. He gave glory to God, not himself. But pressure does not disappear with success. It intensifies. One day Nebuchadnezzar constructed a massive golden statue and commanded all officials to bow when the music played. The plain filled with dignitaries. Instruments sounded. Thousands fell to their knees. But 3 men remained standing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow. They were brought before the king. The furnace was heated 7 times hotter than usual. Their refusal was clear and calm. Our God is able to deliver us, but even if he does not, we will not serve your gods. They were thrown into the fire. The flames were so intense that the soldiers who cast them in perished. Yet when Nebuchadnezzar looked into the furnace, he saw not 3 bound men, but for walking freely in the fire. A 4th figure appeared with them. They emerged unharmed. Pressure had tested them. Faith had sustained them. Time moved forward. Empires shifted. Babylon eventually fell to the Medes and Persians. Many officials would have lost position during such transitions. Daniel did not. His integrity transcended political change. Under King Darius, Daniel distinguished himself once again. His work was flawless, his character beyond reproach. Jealous officials searched desperately for a fault, but found none. Finally, they concluded that the only way to trap him was through his devotion to God. They persuaded Darius to issue a decree that for 30 days, no one could pray to any god or man except the king. It was a calculated trap. They knew Daniel's habits. When Daniel learned of the decree, he did not panic. He did not hide. He did not protest publicly. He simply went home, opened his windows toward Jerusalem, and prayed 3 times a day as he always had. He was arrested. Darius was distressed, but Persian law could not be revoked. Daniel was thrown into a den of lions. A stone sealed the entrance. Night fell. Inside the den, Daniel faced creatures strong enough to crush bone in seconds. Yet fear did not rule him. He trusted the same God who had guided him through exile, through tests, through fire. Morning came. Darius rushed to the den and called out, "Has your God been able to save you?" From within came Daniel's voice. God had sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. Daniel emerged unharmed. Faith under pressure does not always prevent the trial. Sometimes it carries you through it. Daniel continued serving for decades. He interpreted visions of future kingdoms. He fasted and prayed for his people. He sought understanding of God's plans. His life was not defined only by dramatic miracles, but by daily consistency. He lived in a culture that pressured him to conform, to compromise, to blend in. Yet he remained distinct without becoming hostile. He served kings faithfully without worshiping them. He engaged culture without losing identity. Daniel's story reveals that pressure reveals priorities. When comfort tempts compromise, faith stands firm. When fear threatens obedience, faith kneels in prayer. When laws demand silence, faith continues its rhythm. He never returned permanently to Jerusalem. He likely died in exile. Yet his influence shaped empires. His writings would inspire generations. His example would teach that true strength is not loud defiance, but steady devotion. Daniel's faith was not loud arrogance. It was disciplined conviction. It was prayer when no one was watching. It was obedience when no reward was visible. It was courage without bitterness. In palaces and prisons, in classrooms and lions' dens, Daniel remained the same man, anchored in trust. And that is why his story still speaks. Because pressure has not disappeared from the world. Kingdoms still rise and fall. Cultures still attempt to redefine identity. Laws still test conviction. Comfort still tempts compromise. But Daniel's life whispers across centuries that faithfulness is possible. That integrity matters. That God remains present in foreign lands and hostile environments. The boy taken captive became a counselor to kings. The exile became a voice of prophecy. The threatened became protected. And through it all, Daniel proved that faith under pressure is not about surviving comfortably. It is about standing faithfully when the world tries to rename you. Remember who you are. When comfort invites compromise, choose conviction. When fear threatens obedience, open the window and pray anyway. Because the same God who stood with Daniel in Babylon still stands with those who trust him today.